You're watching HuffPost Live. I'm Ahmed Shahabuddin, and I'm joined by Alicia Menendez. So you guys must have heard the news. We were just talking about it. The shooting outside the Empire State. It seems around 9 a.m. 5 people were shot, up to 5 people. Of course, this story is breaking. And I think my gut, Alicia, to be honest with you, is just when I hear these stories, I think, when is it going to end? I know it's a cliche question to ask, but sometimes when these things happen, you know, elsewhere in the country, you feel so detached, so far removed. But it's happening in New York.
Yeah, and we are in New York,
right.
for anyone who doesn't know that.
Right.
And yeah, you and I talk a lot about gun control, and I think the most alarming thing to me is that logically to me, when you have an event like this, you would think you'd see a spike in support for gun control, and it's actually quite to the contrary.
Yeah, it's been missing. I mean, you know, we have a community joining us, actually, as well as our New York editor. So why don't we bring them into this conversation? We have Chris Mateus, the New York editor, joining us from the Huffington Post, as well as Alex in our community, Chelsea, and Michael. Now, you know, we don't know this for certain, but it seems that there might have been some sort of a disagreement between co-workers. But aside from the breaking aspects of this story, my gut went to, when are we going to have that real conversation about gun control?
I think, I think gun control is such a touchy issue in this country because, you know, you've got with people's interpretation of the constitutional right to bear arms versus the safety of the culture, safety of the society. And, you know, as long as that's going to be a major debate, as opposed to a solid agreement among people, we're going to have incidents like this where people are going to feel like it's perfectly okay to carry a gun, a concealed weapon, etc.
Chris, why don't we come to you? I know you're following this story. You know, I can't help but think 90 guns for every 100 people in this country. Is this just the fact that there's too many guns out there?
Yeah, I mean, this is what Mayor Bloomberg has been going across the country talking about for the past few weeks. And it's definitely an issue here in New York City. But, you know, at the moment, this seems like a different kind of shooting that we're not, you know, used to seeing necessarily in New York City, namely in Midtown near the Empire State Building.
I was actually just speaking about this issue last night over dinner with some friends. And I brought up the issue of how there's so many guns here and how in other places in Europe, for example, you don't see this type of gun violence. But in a more comparable society, in Canada, for example, there are a lot of guns. A lot of citizens own guns. There's a lot of shooting and hunting and things like that for recreational value. But you don't see these shootings of fellow citizens.
Chris, can you
happening
substantiate
on the streets of?
Can you substantiate for us what we know?
Cities.
I want to make sure we have the facts that we do have on the table before we all start reacting.
And sure, yeah. I mean, the details have been all over the place this morning. But what we do know that the AP can confirm is that the gunman is dead. At least 4 people have been wounded, although we're getting reports now that the New York Post just tweeted that 10 people have been shot. And there's a witness at the scene told Fox News that the gunman was shooting indiscriminately at people.
These are 2 ambulances on the scene earlier today. This is one of the photos that's being circulated. Here's another one. This is just, you know, coming in. Anthony DeRosa tweeting it as well. This is at 5th Avenue. There's other photos suggesting that this tweet suggesting, of course, we can't verify this, that a Gray Line worker was one of the victims, at least one of the victims that was shot. But Chris, you know, what is your personal reaction as a New Yorker? I mean, you live here. This is where we live. You know, this is where I live, and this is home. And when this stuff happens at home, even without knowing all the facts, I think it really sparks a real, you know, triggers a really visceral reaction, at least for me.
It's, you know, it's a horrifying thing when something like this happens. And, you know, immediately, I think everyone around the office this morning were calling their friends to see if they were okay. A lot of people know people who work in or near the Empire State Building, and, you know, it's just a horrifying thing.
It seems as though we're not going to be able to take our focus off of it. Alex, I want to hear from you as well. What's going through your mind?
I mean, I have a lot of friends, especially here in San Diego, that have guns, and what they say is that, oh, you know, I have my gun, so these kind of shootings could never happen when I'm around, such as the Aurora shooting, because they're like, well, I'm packing heat, and that's, I think, is the crux of the issue, because people says every time there's a shooting, they're like, well, if we have guns, then we can stop the gunmen or stuff like that. But I don't think that's going to be. I don't think that's going to be the answer.
What's interesting is that I know more people now who are saying, like, for instance, with the, I guess what's being called the Batman shootings, people are like endorsing the fact it's like, well, if everybody in that theater had a gun, this wouldn't happen. The debate is really twisted. I think there needs to be, as we were talking about earlier, and as you were inferring earlier, there needs to be a national debate on this. Maybe separate from the New York issue. Maybe there's some other things going on there that Mayor Bloomberg is bringing to the forefront. But I think this is a major debate, and it shouldn't be politicized. Of course, it's going to be politicized. But guns is guns is guns, and we've got to figure out what to do with this issue. Just in general, is my feeling.
Right.
It's not going to. This is just going to escalate.